Thank you so much for having me on, Tessa.
Oh, absolutely. And uh, what got you into this mess?
You mean what got me to Russia? If you want to start with that, I just came here. I had worked as I guess you could say a journalist in Washington, D.C., and I got burnt out, and I ended up moving to Central Europe, to the Czech Republic, to hang out with some Czech friends and teach English. And I just decided to keep going east. So I ended up with a job teaching in Bashkortostan, of all places.
Oh, wow.
And and then about a year after that, I got an invitation to come to Moscow and write. So I did, and I've never left. So
Well, I was going to make a joke. Don't end up in Siberia with moving east.
I almost did. I was in Bashkortostan.
No, but honestly, your writing is so stunning. I am so happy. I was so happy to discover it because, I was following the Cyber Polygon, and
Yeah,
I was, 2 years ago and then last year, and my original homeland was all over the place. It was
yeah,
very prominently represented, as I'm sure you're well aware. And then from here, people say, oh my God, like, Russia is against the COVID scam and Russia is in this beacon of freedom. And I was like, wait a second. It doesn't quite correlate because you can't be a beacon of freedom and be working hand in hand with Klaus Schwab. So when I discovered your blog, I was like, yes, yes, yes. So exciting. So you've been in Russia and then you started writing about COVID. How did that happen?
well, so when I first came to Moscow, I was working for this website called Russia Insider, and then I got a job working for Press TV, which is the Iranian. It's sort of like Iranian state television, in English. And so I was their Moscow correspondent, and then after that, I got a job with RT. So I was working for RT for about 4 years, and I just for many reasons, I just really, really got fed up with RT and its, I thought, totally unacceptable policies concerning how it covers important topics, in my opinion, about what was happening in Russia at the time. So I quit. And about a month later, I decided to start just writing about what I thought needed to be written about. So,
Wonderful. Well, I used to follow, like, RT was very decent when it was writing about America, well, for obvious reasons. Everybody
right.
likes to be a good analyst when it comes to the proverbial enemy. And then I didn't bother to read it about anything about Russia because what's the point? So,
Exactly. 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 And, that I think that's a totally, I think there's wonderful, insightful analysis about the United States on RT. But for me, it was like I wanted to write about what was happening in Russia. Like this was what was most important to me, and what I thought needed to be reported on, and they didn't want to do it. And they had what bothered me the most actually was that they just had two totally obvious different standards here, right? Like they would let you call, France totalitarian for having QR codes, but you can't say anything about what has been going on in Russia. And for me, that double standard was just too much because this issue for me was a red line. It was like once this was crossed, I'm just not playing these games anymore. I'm not going to try to justify, you know, my sort of, I guess we're all hypocrites, right? But this was just like I can't do this anymore. I quit. So,
no, I hear you. And I saw that there was a change at some point. They was calling it. And then when Russia became really Nazi about it, that was the time when you can no longer talk about it.
yep,
So
yep,
that was a very, very drastic change, very palpable.
yeah,
So good
totally.
for you taking a stand. But I
Okay,
mean,
yeah. So the one exception I would make is in the metro. They sometimes they're very strict about it in the metro. Sometimes they'll have like these sort of gangs of policemen, who'll be like, "Where's your mask? Like you're not wearing your mask properly." Yeah, it's a total extortion racket. Totally,
and
totally.
do they actually find people on the subway?
Yeah, yeah. You can get fined. I think the first offender fee is like 5,000 rubles, which is what, like $70. But that's a lot for your average Russian.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah. They also had the plastic. They had the plastic gloves for a long time, where
Mandatory.
according to the rules, you were supposed to wear these stupid disposable gloves in the metro and also in shops, but nobody ever did it. Nobody ever did it. It was just totally ignored. And then Sobyanin, the mayor of Moscow, he just pretended that people were doing it, and then like a year later, he just gave up and was like, "Okay, we don't have to wear them anymore," but nobody was wearing them. So this is so stupid. It's so stupid. All of it is so stupid.
But did they officially cancel the mask
It,
mandates everywhere?
no,
Just in
no, well,
Moscow?
no. So there's no there's still the mask rules are still in place in like shops in the metro and everywhere. It's just that people don't really follow it. And I think it's the same everywhere, honestly. I think in most places. Although again, it really depends on where you are. So I don't want to say
New
everywhere.
York, New York people are pretty compliant still, and I see a lot of people outside, especially college-age kids.
No.
No, that is actually criminal on the part of the propagandists, because the kids, kids usually want to do good, right? It's kind of like it's a good intention, and if they're told that this way they're being responsible citizens and helping and saving, they're just doing it. And I see
Are
so
they
many college-age kids walking around still outside in masks. It's so strange.
are they double masking, triple masking?
Not so much, but I was yelled at a store at some point by a double masked employee who was hysterical. She was just losing it. And I didn't even want to, I was like, I'll do whatever makes you happy, because she was just losing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this is very strange. But I'm glad that my compatriots are doing well.
They're doing really. They're making you should be proud. You should be proud. Yeah.
What about people's enthusiasm about the vaccines?
Good question. Very unenthusiastic. But so this is what's so interesting about Russia, which is it's one of these countries where it's clear, it's absolutely clear that the majority of Russians did not want the vaccine. I think that if they had just kept it completely voluntary, nobody would have cared, really. But in June of last year, so June 2021, mid-June, Moscow became the first region in Russia where they implemented a compulsory vaccination decree, where you had to have it like 60% of your workforce in certain sectors had to be vaccinated. And then a bunch of other regions followed. They implemented similar things, and it was quite it's bad. And at this, what they did, it was a slow boil system where they said, okay, it's just only 60% of your workforce needs to be vaccinated. Then, in November, they said 80. And, there are now situations in some regions of Russia, you have to be vaccinated to go to university. So they're making 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds vaccinate just to get an education
On the regional level or university level?
at the regional level. Yeah. So it's really too bad. And these are it's horrible coercion like you see everywhere else in the world. And Russians are absolutely opposed to it. And it's so heartbreaking to see that what makes Russia so unique in a lot of ways, if you think about it, is that unlike in a lot of other countries, for example, take even sort of at the state level in the United States, one could make the argument that, okay, like in Massachusetts, for example, which apparently is like totally vaxxed out of their brains, right? It's like 95% have one shot. You could make the case that, this is what they want. They want vaccination decrees and whatever. Russia, it's a country where people are they really, really were opposed to this experimental medical experiment, which is what it was. They didn't want the QR codes, and yet the government is still imposing it on them. And so it's heartbreaking. This was a situation where Russia really could have stood out if their leaders had taken a stand, but for whatever reason, they didn't.
Meaning, if their leaders weren't collaborating with Klaus Schwab and friends,
Exactly.
that could be one reason.
It's a secret. No, exactly. So, Insane.
Like another thing, and I do want to get back to that line of thought about the collaboration. But before that, I was hearing rumors that people in Russia, they were skeptical about the Russian vaccines, but enthusiastic about the American ones, which would make sense to me growing up there, because that's an implication that everything homemade is crap and everything Western is awesome. Like, especially in the more educated, groups of people. Have you observed that?
I've heard similar stories. I don't know how true it is, but I'm sure that at a certain level, I mean, but that's a very Russian thing to believe, right? Like, well, our vaccine is shit, but I'm sure that the American vaccine is better. I mean, you'll get that when you're talking about anything. So I don't think it was really well thought out. Like, oh, Pfizer like has all these cool. They didn't like study the evidence. They're just like, I bet the Americans have a better vaccine than we do. I bet it's more like that. I think personally.
Now that would totally make sense, because growing up there, this is exactly the thinking that Russian make crappy stuff and Americans make awesome stuff. And so that applies to everything. And in some cases it's true, but in this case it's kind of,
everybody has crap.
And another thing that you wrote about that is very interesting is the relationship between Russian vaccine manufacturers and, say, businessmen involved in the affairs, and, say, Pfizer or AstraZeneca. So please tell me your thoughts about that, because this is super interesting.
Yeah, well, so I think it's really funny. I mean, for example, like in at least the alternative media that I'm familiar with, I think that Sputnik V really got a free pass. Like everybody was really pounding Pfizer and AstraZeneca, Moderna, and rightfully so, obviously. But for some people, just either left Sputnik V alone, or sort of even implied that it was somehow different. That it wasn't one of these big pharma clot shots. It was made by the Russian government. It's like safe and effective. Blah blah blah. Yada yada yada. What's really interesting about Sputnik V is that from the very beginning, the Russian government had a partnership with AstraZeneca, which is also really weird, because the guy who the alleged main developer of Sputnik V, this really, really creepy guy named Alexander Ginsburg, who's the head of the Gamaleya Center, was like, oh yeah, like these shots are basically the same. Like there's no significant difference between Sputnik V and the AstraZeneca shot. And AstraZeneca in the original plan was to have like a Sputnik V, first injection, and then the second injection is AstraZeneca. That was the original plan. And they spoke about it. Oh, you can read about it like in Russian media. And it's so funny. And then they did the same thing, they did these like joint studies with Pfizer and also with Moderna. And it's just very, very difficult to believe that if Sputnik V is some sort of amazing, anti-empire serum, to stop the globalist agenda, why wouldn't they just be like, Sputnik 5 is the best. We don't need your stupid big pharma clot shots. We've got our own. Like, we don't need to partner with you. They did the exact opposite, and right from the very beginning. And then it just gets weirder and weirder. I mean, this is like a whole other, I don't know if you even want to go here, but then when you really get into who is behind Sputnik V and their ties to the World Economic Forum, and it literally, Russia in so many ways, like if you're someone who believes that Klaus Schwab and his, stooges are up to horrible shenanigans, I mean, Russia should be like the prime, it's like the most obvious country where clearly the government has been infiltrated by bad actors. Like, it just couldn't be more obvious, So with Sputnik V, Hermann Graf says that he got the shot months before. He
must be immortal now.
He must be immortal, or he's probably lying. I think that's what's going on here, Tessa. And it's just there's even more to this. I'm just sort of blanking, but it's so weird how closely connected Sberbank is to this shot. And so why should this concern us? Hermann Greff is a board of trustees member of the World Economic Forum. He's like this with Schwab. They're like best friends forever. And this guy, this is the thing about Sberbank, is that in September 2020, so you have Sputnik V is approved in August, September, next month, Sberbank announces that it's no longer a bank. It's not a bank anymore. It's an ecosystem of services. So they have like spare AI, spare food, spare delivery, spare sound. I'm not even making this up.
The Uber of Russian everything.
It's
and
literally
wow. I mean, I actually didn't. When did it happen? When did they become the hub of everything?
September 2020.
Holy.
So okay, it was by that point. It's true that lockdowns had ended in Russia because the lockdowns didn't last very long in Russia. But this was still like peak COVID craze when you had all these things, everything going online. Education, all these businesses getting totally wrecked, and here comes Sberbank with its ecosystem of services. And what they're also involved in, Tessa, is that Sberbank, for some reason, is really interested in biometric identification systems. And they've already started installing biometric systems in schools in Moscow. And they're targeting the children first. They're basically making biometric ID systems for Russia's youngest generations.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad.
And so what is the practical application? What are the kids required to do in school in terms of biometric IDs?
Well, to enter, it's a security system, right? In order to enter and exit. And on social media, you have all these parents like writing these messages being like, nobody told me that they were going to install this biometric system. We weren't informed. And now my kid has to like give his, handprint in order to get into school.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's really spooky. It's really spooky. And so Spare, not Sberbank, because now it's more than just a bank, is really invested in rolling out these biometric systems. And one of the reasons why I feel like almost QR codes don't even matter is because isn't really the goal here just to make everything like your eyeball becomes your ID? It's like we don't need a barcode. We have your handprint, right? So it's really not good. And all this stuff you hear about and read about the fourth industrialization and all of these grand plans like for smart cities and the Internet of Things and all these things, it applies so heavily to Russia in such an obvious way, and they're really pushing it.
That was my feeling too. Well, I mean, like, that is my feeling, is that right now here they're talking, they're going back on mandate. So we won. I don't think we won anything. I mean, like, it's great that they're rolling back a little bit, but I think they've pushed the people very far, and the psychology is damaged, as in people have accepted that they can be treated like shit. And then the next thing, they will roll up the same thing, but wrapped in something sweet. Oh, that's for your health. That's for your security. That's a system that monitors your blood pressure. Oh, yeah, well, whatever. So they are going to roll out the same thing they wanted to roll out, but, in some other wrapper. Or they'll come up with a new virus or whatever. But it's meaningless that they're, like, it's pleasant that they're going back on it, but it's not going to last, probably.
I totally agree. So, yeah, it's wild. And
how, I mean, like, what are, so they're telling the parents that their children have to use the biometric IDs. What is the action? Are parents just silently, like, indignant, or they're complaining to each other, or is there some kind of an activism thing going on? What's happening? How do people react?
That's a good question. I've only seen there's, parent groups on Kontaktia, which is, Russian Facebook. I don't know what's being done. I feel like it's sort of this, there's this feeling that nothing can be done. Moscow has said that it wants to basically have these biometric systems. I don't know in all of the schools, but they said their plan is to really get this rollout going and have results by the end of this year. So they're really pushing this in Moscow. It's crazy. And it just sort of happened overnight,
But how, so was it, I don't know, the Putin said we're rolling out those IDs. I mean, like, how did it just all of a sudden start happening? Or did it happen on the local school level?
Okay, so this is really interesting, actually. I shouldn't have said they just happened overnight. They've had plans to do this for many, many years, but I think it really didn't have a really good reason to do it. So my understanding is that the Ministry of Education, so at the federal level, I believe in 2018 or 19, we're like, we want all of our schools to have biometric security systems by, I think, 2024, I want to say. And so, of course, one of the, pitches, I guess, that they're telling people is these biometric systems are also, they also have these, measure if you have a fever or a temperature, right? So it's protecting the health of your children. It's outrageous. It's really sad how they've used this biosecurity, and I really think that they're specifically targeting children because they're the ones that you can mold, right? And a lot of adults know that this is bullshit, but you can target children much easier.
I'm afraid you're right, and I really don't like it.
Yeah.
This is such crap.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. It's really, really sad.
And eventually it'll fall apart because it's just so unnatural and so horrendous that I don't think it will last forever, but there could be a period of time that is not pleasant. So,
So do you think, is that your take, that you think that they'll just overextend and it'll all collapse? That's
well,
sort of
I
how
think that eventually, I don't know when, because the technology, on the one hand, the technology is pretty advanced.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's also this element of like Soviet what the fuck, as in like it doesn't really work and people pretend that it works, but it doesn't really work. And then at some point people just can't lie anymore because it just falls apart. So the Soviet Union, which was a scam in many ways, although it was extremely important emotionally to, two generations of people, like it did fall apart. But it came at a cost, and it came with generational trauma and all those things. And then, of course, they didn't have that technology at the time. They had the same ambition, but they did not have the technology.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes when you look at targeted ads and you're like, this is bullshit. I mean, the technology is not that great. They're flattering themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're definitely trying. And the psychological change where they train kids specifically to accept it as if like privacy is a luxury. Oh, you're so selfish if you want to have privacy because your privacy can kill a grandma. I mean, they really thought through the psychological manipulation techniques, and kids might be going for that. But I can just see today's kids as kind of the generation of my grandparents in Russia, because that's the generation that was subjected to massive propaganda. And then they pretty much lived with that worldview. And when they were really old, it was discovered, quote unquote, that it was all bullshit. And they were like, oh, by the way, that was all a lie. Goodbye. So, but wow, I mean, it is so fascinating that even in Russia, they're pushing the biometric. It's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But are there like let me paraphrase it. So do people realize what it's about, like on a massive scale, that it's a grand reform and it's a push that has nothing to do with health? Or what is the public sentiment about it?
It's a good question. My feeling, just speaking with Russians and just anecdotally, would be, I don't know if they've really sort of pieced everything together or even thought too deeply about it. They're just naturally suspicious, and they're just naturally suspicious of anything their government tells them to do. And so it just doesn't have the kind of, there's not the same. I feel like you have in the United States and in Europe, I feel like you really do have this problem, as cliche as it sounds, of this problem of virtue signaling, right? Like, I want to show that I'm a good person, and so I'm going to follow the rules
Right.
and be obedient and show people that, I'm doing my part. And that mindset just doesn't really exist in the same way in Russia. People are so jaded from the Soviet Union. So, like, I'm not doing what you tell me to do. That doesn't show that I'm a good person.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, who would be a good person by following the government? Hello.
No, exactly. And people think, like, you have to realize in Russia, it's so funny, like, for example, reading about Russia, no matter where you read about Russia, whatever your sources, and living here, because people get so passionate about, like, Russian politics and, is Putin like this great savior of civilization or this evil demon? And, what is the Russian, like, the grand philosophical vision of the Russian, nation, and blah, blah, blah. Really, like, for most Russians, it's just like, I do not trust authority. I'm going to do my best to, like, bypass it in any possible way. I don't care what they say. Doesn't interest me. I want nothing to do with it. Like, this is really the reality, the day-to-day reality for most Russians. And there's very, very low expectations here for the government. They just expect nothing. They expect nothing.
Well, except being conned. I mean, that's my people.
Right. They're always looking out for a trick. They're like, they're going to trick us, aren't they? This is another trick. Yeah.
Very prudent, very wise.
Yeah, no, for real. There's a lot of street smarts here, for sure. So exactly. That's exactly what it's going to be like. That's my impression. They don't care whether there will be even any policies enforced. Probably they'll just get, like, some budget, like, this is the budget money for fighting climate change, and then it just goes straight into Tobias's pocket, and everyone's happy. So it's Russia.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, at least we can laugh about it.
What else do we have? What else do we have left? I mean, this is the thing. Of course, some days I wake up and I'm in a really, like, I feel really despondent. It's true. Like, sometimes I really weep for the future. But it's almost, in a way, it's almost liberating, right? Because if you think it's really that bad, and I do think it's really bad, in some ways that's just like, you got to YOLO. Like, you only live once. Like, let's just try to have fun with it. And, like, just mess up things as much as possible. Like, just be the biggest pain in the ass possible at this point. And these people like, that's the one thing that has kept me going, is that as painful and distressing as everything's been, it's been wonderful to meet people who see through the bullshit. And, I think that my personal, like, relationships with people have actually, like, the ones that really count, have really grown a lot stronger. And I get to meet cool people like Tessa. So, it's like,
oh, look, this thing is bad. It's very much not enough. It's okay, so it's bad. So people know that war is bad and wars are happening. People know that fracking is bad and fracking is happening. People knew that GMOs were bad. Wait a second. And now we have this entire, like, new thing with genetically. Anyway, so it's good to understand that some things are bad, but it's not enough. So what I realized in the past 3 years, that it's really about internals, and the way we get out of the Great Reset eventually is by, I coined this phrase, facing the tyrant in the mirror, or defeating the tyrant in the mirror. That's what it is, because that tyrant in the mirror, spirit of domination, in the words of Stephen Newcomb, who's brilliant, idea, that whole sentiment is what got us into Great Reset, and before that it got us into like Crusades, and before that it got us into, or after that it got us into the whatever Bolshevik Revolution. That's that it's the same beast. It's the same emotion that takes different shapes. Sometimes they fight with each other. Sometimes they're like polar opposites. They pretend to be different, and then people fight with each other, but it's the same thing. So until we go at the root of it and we agree that, you know what, it's not cool to twist other people's free will, even if I think I'm right. It's just not cool to do that. If I'm on the right side of things, if I consider myself sincerely that I'm on the right side of history or philosophy and all those things, then it's not cool to twist other people's arm. It's just like, it's not how it's done on the right side of things. That's the issue. And then I write about philosophy and I know that I gain a lot more followers when I just describe, okay, DARPA, this, and, you know, like, because people like information. It it's empowering, and people feel smart, and I like information too. And sometimes I get into the topic, and, you know, even though I'm bored with writing about the Great Reset in general, because come on, it's there. But what really eats at them is facing the tyrant in the mirror, is what you're saying, changing yourself. Because if half of the people of Earth decided to be honest spiritually and brave spiritually and not dogmatic, and actually be able to change their minds if new information comes in or whatever, maybe they have a different intuitive feeling, they just change their minds and just like say, okay, you know what, I thought this, now I think that, because and that's normal, right? And allow others to also like kind of walk their journey and how they perceive things. The tyrants would have nothing. They would lose power. It's just energy. They would, like, that element, that energy that's feeding into their power, they would stop, like they would lose food. And I don't know when it's going to happen. My estimate is probably like thousands of years. But that's why I write about it. But going back to the very practical and kind of cute or not cute, like I do write about philosophy because I think that's important. I care about the world. Like it might be idealistic, but I write because I think when I think there's something important or something that I learned or something that I figured out, and I write about it, whether I think it's going to be super popular or not. And the most important things I write about, the things that I'm most proud of, they usually lose me subscribers. And I do it anyway, because I think that luckily I have thick enough skin, and it's like, I can't say I don't care. I do care, obviously, because I need to eat and I need more paid subscribers, and I'm sure you do it all. And by the way, you do it, you go around, like you go about it so gracefully. I like it. It's beautiful the way you phrase it. Handsome paid subscribers. Like it's beautiful. But I mean, like I very much need that, and you do too. Yeah. But I'm not going to lie through my teeth or like be cheesy. It's like I won't be able to live with myself if I go like, oh, look at this, like 5D basketball. I mean, like I don't want to do that. And in a way, I feel very privileged in the sense that, well, privileged, not financially, but like in a way, I actually write what I think. You do too, and it's a very feeling. It's like I don't care if it pisses people off. I mean, I do in a way, like an adult cares about, like, you know, you have to say things right. I don't say things just because I think them. I say things if I think them, and I think it's useful to say that. But so I put a lot of love into this. And so when I post those things that I think are very important, existential, and very helpful, and luckily there's a lot of people who find it helpful, and it's like it's a beautiful experience. I get all those emails, and like my heart warms up, and it's beautiful. But then there are people who, like, you know, they expected me to write about like DARPA and stuff like all the time. And if I don't do that, then like, so part it's like almost encouraging to others. I survive the fact that sometimes people unsubscribe because philosophy doesn't appeal to them. I do what I think is important. And you are very much of the same, like you have the same quality, and this is one of the reasons I like you. So, and I think it's important that more people do that, because in the end, when we're on our deathbed, it's important to have given the world exactly our gift and not just like be slaves to people's opinions or whatever they think about viruses or Ukraine or Russia or whatever.
Yeah. I think, look, I think people don't understand how valuable it is to actually have voices that aren't funded by governments and corporations. Like how absolutely essential that is. And as someone who, I worked for the Russian government, I worked for the Iranian government, and if you're not being directly censored, there's a huge amount of self-censorship. And to be able to, like, I'm just speaking personally now, to be able to write exactly what I want to write in the way that I want to write it, whenever I want to write it, I don't even know if I can put a price on it. Of course, I am really poor, whatever, it was worth it. I have no regrets. But everything you were talking about, Tess, I mean, this has been, one of my favorite, I call him the original neckbeard blogger, Henry David Thoreau, the OG blogger, Hank Thoreau, who said he advised his readers on Substack that you shouldn't read the Times. You should read I think he said you shouldn't read the Times. You should read the what was it? Oh, the Eternities. Don't read the Times. Read the Eternities. Don't read the newspaper, the New York Times. Read the things that will last forever, the things that are timeless, right? And then he had another great saying. I'm gonna butcher this one, but it was something like, if everyone stopped reading newspapers, the government would fall to its knees. Right? And he was just talking about how people get obsessed about information, and they think that this makes them, a good person or an educated person. But the reality is, if you just focus on yourself, the government would be furious, And there's another great one really quickly where this is a really good one. He's talking about, in one of his essays, he's talking about the U.S. Constitution. And he's like, well, look, if you're an American, you look at this document and you say, this is quite an incredible step forward. This is progress for all humans around the world. An incredible document, never really been done before. Take maybe, taking a few steps back from that perch, from that perspective, and you start to notice that this Constitution doesn't cover everyone's rights, that it's not really everything that it claims to be. Then you look at it from, 1,000 feet above, and who cares about the Constitution? And again, it's just about, Thoreau was Hank, the original blogger. I think he really knew what was going on, in his little cabin growing beans. So props to Hank Thoreau, my hero.
No, this is a really interesting topic, and it's a sensitive one, because here's my view. I think there is a practical beneficial quality or maybe was to the Constitution. And
of course,
that it comes with a certain public relation campaign that the people above had to pretend to abide by in the recent decades. Prior to that, who knows? Probably not.
Right.
But
right.
in our lifetime, we were born into a particular era of marketing, political marketing, where, and by the way, it's being very quickly rolled back before our eyes, very visibly. But for a few decades, there was this very specific marketing brochure that was about like Western freedoms and free expression and First Amendment and all those things. It was, I don't kid myself, it was a public relations campaign. It was not because anybody cared about the little guy, but nonetheless, there was a benefit to the little guy, because maybe it was in the opposition to the Soviet Union or whatever. There had to be this, like there was a selling point. Or maybe because consumerism was extremely profitable to the big mysterious investors and less mysterious investors. So that was the business model. But again, it so happens that to the little guy, there was a benefit. Now, if we look at it philosophically, so words are cheap, including written words, unless there's a practical benefit. So, for example, if Agenda 2030 or anything that is in writing from Klaus Schwab, some of those are very nice ideas. Like sustainable development in earnest. I'm not talking about what it actually means, but in theory, if somebody's talking about language, sustainable development is lovely. Like, like nature, preserving nature, human rights, fighting against racism. Who wouldn't want to fight against racism? Obviously, racism is bad, right? So but words are cheap. So if Klaus Schwab can lie through his teeth and say nice things, well, he doesn't always say nice things, obviously. Hopefully people know my work and know that I have contempt for him and nothing else. But like theoretically, so
Tessa loves Klaus Schwab. Tessa loves Klaus Schwab. I'm going on Twitter right now. I'm breaking news. Retweet.
No, sometimes, like honestly, I think people who subscribe to me relatively recently, and sometimes I say something assuming that the context is there, that obviously I've been writing about the Great Reset since like 2020, right? But then maybe they haven't shared it. And then, so going back, so if a guy of his despicable qualities on record says things that generally sound nice, then does it mean that he means them? No. If the United Nations, whatever document, again, like Agenda 2030, any of those documents, when you read them, they sound benevolent, boring, actually, kind of very boring, but there's nothing evil in them. They're good principles, like defending the rights of indigenous people, like preserving whatever nature, human rights. It's very noble. Does it mean that the practical outcome is meant as noble? I don't think so. The devil is always in the detail. Like, furthermore, if we look, and again, I'm talking as an honest human being. And based on my knowledge of history, actual democracy per se, and of course people then go, America is not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic, fine. But the pride point is that we have freedom and democracy and all that representation. So in some societies, older societies, including on this land before Europeans showed up, they had perfect representation, as if in some nations, things don't get done unless everybody agrees, literally.
Right.
Or they had councils of like men and women, and it was like done properly. And of course, now real question is numbers. So whenever a unit is small and everybody knows each other and it's much easier to manage. And then when it's large, it's a mess. I don't think human beings can actually maintain proper democracy in a normal sense of it in anything like an empire. I think it's just not possible. But going back to being honest, just philosophically honest, and I don't care about politics, ideologies, and isms, it doesn't interest me. But if we're honest, then we have to be honest about like actual facts. Otherwise, what is it good for? Just to protect our own talking point? I mean, like, it's lovely, but what does it get us? Anyway, you got me into the rabbit hole here, Riley. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I am going to now quiz you on your opinion on viruses. So there's
Oh no! I don't know. I can't. If you disagree with my opinion, I don't think we can be friends anymore, Tessa. It's over.
I should have asked you in the beginning. Then my tone and my entire direction of the conversation should have depended on what actually. Yeah.
Our whole conversation should have been. That's the prerequisite. Is our peculiar positions on virology, which have absolutely no impact on the future of the world, but it's very important for our personal relationship. Yeah, very, very serious.
No. Is there anything super intelligent that you want to share with us today, Riley? No
Oh
pressure.
no. Oh no, I don't think so. I don't think so. It's just been, it's obviously been a very, especially for someone who writes about Russia, it's been a very interesting few weeks for sure. But what can you say, Tessa? I always try to remind myself that, very crazy things happen a lot throughout history, and they happen pretty regularly. And I try to remember that probably even in 10 years, no one is even going to care really about what happened in 2023, maybe. So try to keep things in perspective.
Well, if the military operation is over by then, or whatever shape. No, but I mean, whatever the map is going to look like I do.
Yeah, right.
Like I do have a feeling that the intention has been a little bit like create another Middle Eastern situation, right?
Yeah, it's really bad. And it's funny, it's not funny, but you're quite correct to point out that make this sort of Middle East analogy, because a lot of people are talking about how probably a very likely outcome is you have a sort of Israel Palestine sort of frozen conflict thing where you have giant concrete walls and barbed wire and just this horrible permanent state of fear and hatred. And I'm sure as a Russian and as someone who has a son who has Ukrainian relatives, I can't think of a worse possible outcome to this. He's like, look at all the amazing things all the people who came before us have done, like in science, literature, sculpture, architecture, music. And if we can learn from these people and be inspired by them, we can do beautiful things together, It's a great series. I really recommend it. Anyway,
Wow.
that's my... Yeah.
Thank you. I'll check it out. Human beings have potential for great beauty and also for great stupidity. So it's kind of, I think it's a matter of choice.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of confusion also created intentionally by the people who essentially not so well intended, and they really want to steal as much as possible and continue doing that for as long as possible. So there's a lot of effort put into the enhancement of the stupid part and suppression of the beautiful part. And
Yes.
then people would have to work against that. And I think the quality of the past few thousand years is that prior to that, to the best of my understanding of me studying history, the people with this general ambition, they obviously always existed, but they were more in the minority, and they were more people who could confront them or curb them or keep them in check. But then something happened with institutional religions and all that. It was like a major advance in like trickery, essentially, because what people feel on the inside can be really beautiful and divine and like amazing. But then the formal part of it, I think, has been a very successful propaganda campaign that kind of divorced people from their innate powers in many ways. And so the guys with not so good intentions had an opportunity to really become very dominant on a massive scale. And once that happened, then there's the self-perpetuating cycle of education that kills the soul. It's like everything. So all those beautiful human beings are born into the world with this genius and beautiful gifts and all those things. And then the society immediately stops hammering them on the head so that they become just functional enough to serve the whoever is arranging this thing. And that's it. And not creative enough to think, not creative enough to say, oh, like, wait a second, like, this is not natural. Like, what's going on here? Wait a second. So the system is so well tuned right now towards the suppression of genius and towards the zombification almost from birth that it takes a lot of additional work comparing to probably like how it was for millions of years to actually find it. And then if you find it, it kind of feels lonely, because I wrote a post recently, and it was a post about why my source of optimism and calm, not ironically, was that I realized that most people are actually messed up. And that makes it kinda, because like all those horrible things are happening, but they're happening because it just so happens that at this point in time, most people genuinely are not themselves. So it's not because humans are messed up in general by default. No, it's just how things are right now. And then in my case, it gives me kindness and sort of like a perspective. And so this is how it is right now. It's very hard to be in the clear because most people are on some level not okay. And life is kind, so people are still functional, so they can still have like some beauty and some truth and some accomplishment and all the things that are considered normal in society. But they're far from being whole, fully fulfilled, shiny, and beautiful in that sense. But that's the lies cannot go on forever. So we had this period of time in history, like everything's upside down, and people put ridiculous words in the mouth of God, and then they get dogmatic about it, and they say, "Oh, God said so," while in reality, it's not God at all who said so. Like in my opinion, but then lies are very energy intensive to maintain, which I believe there's so much theft. Because they're trying to steal so much because they need to maintain the completely unnatural thing, the completely unnatural state of the world. So sooner or later, like it cannot be maintained forever. Like it's going to crash.
Right. And I feel like eventually, in fact, future generations forget to maintain the lies, right? There's a process where you have to keep the lie alive, and then people will forget about that lie, and the lie collapses, right?
In the West, we have a particular system, education from the kindergarten, medical system from birth. Everything, like every aspect of society is tailored toward a lie.
A lot of the stuff that you're like arguing about and commenting on and obsessing over every day, it's just garbage. Like it has no meaning. It's not really real. It's just slop that's spoon fed to the peasants so that, they feel good about being treated like trash. Like in Russia, every day on state TV, they're always talking smack about the United States. And then I come to, the United States, and on CNN, they're saying stuff like, well, this is what Trump is doing this, and that's what Putin wants. And like, meanwhile, we're both just being absolutely curb stomped, Russia, the United States, any country in the world really, by a global oligarchy that could care less about ideology or, anything. There's in it for the pure power and money. But this is what we're like hung up on. And it would be so wonderful. Like I dream of just being able to find a way to relay to people that like 99% of the stuff that you're wasting your time, like the doom scrolling on the internet or the debating about geopolitical strategy, it's just slop. And really all we got to start doing is finding people that you can like experience the miracle of life with, like let's just like get together, grow some potatoes, and just live. And you don't need to like you're just like putting your head in the gutter with this stuff. Like you're not empowering yourself at all. You're literally giving your only thing you have, like the sacred temple of your mind, rent free to these freaks by wasting your time with all this like just nonsense. It doesn't have to be like that. Anyway,
it doesn't have to be like that at all. No, but I mean, I agree with you, and I think we're both frustrated about it because there's this fake empowerment in the world of the so-called democracy where people, for very understandable psychological reasons, have the feeling if that they say something online, then it's going to, meaning politically,
right.
that like somebody's going to listen and politics going to change and then the world is going to be different. And that's a drug. That's a psychological drug. And I have figured it out by way of, growing up in the Soviet, like I was a kid when there was an actual Soviet Union and censorship and all that. So they did it differently over there in that time comparing to the America pre-2001, right? So they did it where you couldn't talk about anything, where it was really dangerous, where dissidency was not a business. Like to this day, like dissidency as a business and going for the freedom. But I mean, like that is so strange to me because dissidency was something that they would send you to Siberia. That was not a joke. That was not something you would do for popularity. That would be something that you would have to think about very, very carefully before saying one word and really realize what I mean, you know what I'm talking about. So in that world, you couldn't say anything. Then in America, pre 2001 and definitely pre 2020, you could say shit, you could say anything as long as it's ineffective. As long as it's just, you can build your brand, you can have millions of followers who think that saying this is empowering, whatever. And, who knows, maybe on some level, some energy builder somewhere, maybe it's important, maybe it's needed. I don't know. I cannot speak for, more than just myself. But on some level, it's just blah, 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 blah. It becomes ineffective like the second it comes out of the mouth. But it feels good. And I think that Americans have been abused by virtue of believing that it works. Because it does feel good to express yourself. I mean, it's an energy release. It's a release. It feels good.
And like it's worse than sports teams. It's like a I mean, you could say that a hardcore sports fan treats his team like a religion or a cult, but I would say it's worse because you can't even process reality. Like you can't even accept that an L is an L. Like you can't. There's no ability to be self-critical. In a way, I have to say that I think it's less of like sports team mentality and more like pornography. It hits all the synapses in your brain that fills you with this like, oh yeah, like this is so great. But really what it's doing is it's like destroying your mind, like pornography like ruins intimacy, geopolitics like ruins your ability to process reality,
Just interrupt me, otherwise I'm going to continue reading comments. Gavin says, and hi Gavin, I'm really happy to see you. Love your work.
Hey,
so
buddy.
yes, sports gets weaponized as a psyop, in my opinion, like the Colosseums of Rome. Yes, Rome. Bread and circuses to keep the plebs distracted so that the empire can continue to dominate. Absolutely, yes, agreement here from me. Gavin says, yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish Gavin's comment, but I have a Gavin story that I could share with everyone. But why don't you finish Gavin's comment?
Beautiful. And Gavin says, hey guys, hey Gavin, love you. I'm so happy that you're a part of this conversation. Riley, stage is yours.
Yes. This is a great little story. So when Gavin, I guess, first came across my blog, he was kind enough to reach out to me and he said, hey man, I don't know if you're familiar. Those who don't know Gavin, he's like this, I don't even know how to describe him. He's just the tour de force of creating, like working with nature to create food and using every single possible thing from our environment to make our lives more beautiful and better. And so anyway, Gavin emails me and he says, hey man, I really like your stuff. Let me send you some seeds. I have some heirloom seeds, vegetable seeds. And I said, that'd be great. I'm not in the United States right now, but you can mail them to this address, which was my mother's address. Well, I never told my mom. I forgot to tell my mom that she was going to get mailed these seeds. And so she got this letter in the mail with, it's just an envelope with seeds in it. And my mom, bless her heart, I love my mother to death, but you could say that maybe she sometimes overreacts, that she doesn't know what these mystery seeds are. And she goes to the police and it's like, I got an envelope full of seeds from someone. What is this envelope? What do you think it is? It just looks like seeds, ma'am. I think it's okay. And then just absentmindedly a few weeks later, I was like, oh, by the way, did you get a letter full of seeds? She's like, yes, I did. And I went to the authorities. I'm like, no, they're heirloom. They're tomatoes. Plant them. And so she did. We have the tomatoes, Gavin. Don't worry. We have all the veggies, but they almost got, confiscated by the authorities. Because
that is such a good story. Oh, you know what? Now on record live, Gavin, I would love some seeds too, because I love tomatoes. Really, really, really love tomatoes.
They're delicious.
And I have tomato stories.
Yeah.
I mean, well, Gavin is absolutely wonderful. Gavin reached out to me at some point too, but I'm not going to make it all about private things that Gavin said to both of us. So, but anybody who is not familiar with Gavin's work, please check it out. Please check out his Substack. It's really beautiful. And his, the book, really, really beautiful and heartfelt, and I highly, highly recommend.
The photographs alone are worth the sub. Just incredible images, and just it's a great read, guys. Come out.
No, absolutely. And by the way, while I'm on the topic of praising people, Riley, If anybody is not subscribed to Riley Substack, please do. Please become a paid subscriber. Please support him in every way, because Riley is absolutely amazing. And well, Edward Slav Squad.
That's right.
Yeah, so please support Riley's work. It's really, really beautiful. And he is, for real, one of my favorite bloggers in the world. And when it comes to my original homeland, I would say that I mostly read Riley on the topic. So I'm just going to leave it at that. On the topic, yeah, please subscribe to Riley. Please support him in every way. And it's a very good thing to do. And Gavin as well. And me as well. I wouldn't mind at all.
Yeah, of course.
So,
subscribe to Tessa. Come on.